Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 192. I felt like cracking open the podcast. What would you call it? The bottle? Cracking the bottle, popping the cork, drinking the drink. I feel like I had enough that I wanted to talk about. That's been building up. Go check out the most recent video on the weird Michael Jordan game. I kind of wanted to. I'll end up talking about my debate. What? Okay, hang on. I'm looking at my notes. I'll end up talking about my week later on, but I actually wanted to start out with the comment review. Just because it was a big topic and I had it on my mind and I was thinking about, well, it requires a larger discussion. I kind of just wanted to launch into it. That's right, no warm-ups. So we had one question from last time. This is left by Ziggy995, who says, not seen the Deus Ex trailer, talking about the Deus Ex Remastered, we talked about last time. Not seen the DE trailer, but your description makes it a hard fucking pass. Any harder and I'd get a nosebleed. Aspire can eat grass. So question. Given your appreciation of System Shock Deus Ex and I Divine Cybermancy, I don't know about the last one. You're clearly an immersive simulator kind of guy. What are your top 9 ImSims? Feel free to chat about those that you've not played but want to as well. So I was very excited to talk about this topic, to be prompted to it. I have a great fondness for the immersive sim genre, vague as it may be. It's one of those things that just really, really clicks with me. It taps on things that I really like about video games. They're very exclusive to the medium of video games, if that makes sense. It's something that could not be done. You couldn't get the same, like, if there was to be a Deus Ex movie or a TV show or a book or any kind of adaptation, a radio drama, I don't think, like, you could make a good movie or show out of Deus Ex. You could make a good thing of that medium, but you would be losing so much of what makes that game interesting, because the choice is so integral. The fact that it is a video game where you can make choices and the gameplay is reflective of the story is such a strong part of the experience. And I love stuff like that. I love things that could only really exist in the medium that they're in. Oh God, I'm going on a tangent already. But for instance, that's why I love Berserk. I love Kentaro Miura's artwork. Like, I don't, if you were to make like, I think it's a shame almost that Berserk anime adaptations are in color. I feel like it's so obvious that Miura's art is tailor-made. Like, the lack of color is a feature. The black and white, the monochrome is a feature. It's not a limitation. Same thing actually with Araki's artwork in JoJo. There's a good video by the YouTuber Hamon Beat about his issues with the official colorizations of the JoJo's manga and how it kind of can mess with Araki's artwork sometimes and make it a lot worse. I used to be like diehard on I'm just going to read the colored manga, mainly because the colored scans were the most popular and the easiest to find with good translations. But once I got caught up and I started being forced to read the black and white originals, I gained a real serious appreciation for Araki's art. And on my reread of Part 8, I got the original black and whites for all of them. I didn't even bother with reading the fully up-to-date color releases. And I think it really enhanced the experience. Anyway, we're talking about immersive simulators. So, I realized when putting together a list that I couldn't quite put together a list of top 9. 9 is a very specific number. I can put together a top 5 easily, but 9's a little specific. And it's like, when I think of like a top 9 list, it's things that I hold in like really really high esteem. And I think once I go, I've played a decent number of games that fall within the immersive sim category, and I'm not like in love with every single one of them. So I could name 9 imsims, but in order to give actual recommendations, I think it would be I'd have to get maybe a smaller list, but I'll still, in the spirit of the question, I have assembled a list of ones that I would recommend. I think I want to start out with at least defining what an immersive simulator is in my eyes, because it's the type of genre that is very vague, and it kind of it's a little fluid with what counts, and some people call this and some people call that. I've got a couple like honorable mentions that some of which I don't think of as immersive sims, but are sometimes grouped into that category. So when I think about an imsim, to me it embodies a couple things. Number one is a sort of style of design, which I described in my System Shock video. I called it designing backwards, where instead of coming up with a set of mechanics or even like a setting or something like that, what they came up with was they called them gameplay minutes. Of here we're gonna write out a dramatic version of a minute of gameplay with just stuff that we think would be cool for the player, stuff that we think would be cool to have possible in our game. And then we're going to take that and we're going to work backwards. We're going to work backwards and then design systems and mechanics to allow those things to happen. In like card game design, I guess you'd call it like, did I talk about this last time? I don't know. You call it a top-down design. You start with like the flavor first, and then onto the nutrients. It is also partially in my mind. It has it's not necessary, but it has a strong correlation to the structure of the game. I would consider many immersive simulators to be somewhere between a hyper-linear experience and an open world sandbox experience. They're somewhere in between, or I would say an open sandbox experience. Yeah, open world and sandbox experience. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a specific kind of blend where you are the player. To me, my sort of like test for it is the player is dropped into a situation. They're dropped into something, and you are given an objective, and the objective is more or less fixed. Like the objective is, you're not making your own fun, like in a sandbox game. The objective is defined. Sometimes you get little plays on this with Dishonored, where you get a choice about how you want the thing to end, but there's like it's a set goal. But the way that you get to that goal can change dramatically, and there are systems and tons of mechanics that form systems that overlap to create extremely dynamic gameplay, so that two people could play the same game and the same mission 10 different ways each, based off of how they choose to approach, what kinds of tools they choose to use, what they try to exploit, what they use to their advantage, what might just randomly come up. That's the in my mind, I see it structurally as like if a linear game is like point and then a straight line to another point, and a sandbox game is like a totally spaghetti like rhizomatic system. An immersive simulator is one point and then another point, but there's like a huge spool of like unwinding threads in between them, and then they all converge again on that second point. So let's talk with some actual examples of things that I would recommend and that I would put in very high esteem. So first of all would be Deus Ex. I would say that if you're not going to start with like the very early examples of the genre with stuff like a System Shock or a Ultima Underworld. Deus Ex is like a real firecracker of an opening. Definitely one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. I think any list that doesn't have it is like heresy to me. The first time that I played it, I was absolutely sucked in to its world, its atmosphere. I kind of went off about what makes it so great. But what I really love about Deus Ex is that it feels like something that had to be the way that it was. It feels so intentional. It's not arbitrary that this game with this story plays like this and is structured like this. The whole game is about choice. It's about the types of people that you want, type of person that you want to be. It's about whether or not, at the highest level, it becomes like, should human beings even be allowed to govern themselves? And it touches on a lot of really interesting philosophy. You can tell that the people who wrote the game were genuinely like fairly well read on a number of political philosophers. It is constantly engaging and interesting. Every single objective that you're given is this puzzle that you feel like you have all of these ways to solve, and there's no boring way to solve them. There's just the way that you like to solve it, based off of what the game gives you. Granted, there are definitely things that it disincentivizes. It disincentivizes full-on combat. That is a solution. You can do that, but it's kind of difficult. Combat is slightly de-emphasized just because I think to many players they're going to be their first. A lot of people just, there's a thing with Prey. I believe one of the designers on Prey was saying that they had a really hard time getting people to play the game like anything other than Call of Duty, because they go, I have a gun, I'm just shoot things, what? And you need to force people to engage with the systems, and that means to some extent actually de-emphasizing parts of the game, taking a little bit of that absolute pure choice away from the player, for putting some limitations to make them engage with the game a little more holistically. But yeah, I don't know how much more can be said about Deus Ex that hasn't already been said, so I'm going to move on to System Shock. I first played the original. I'll say the Enhanced Edition, which I think is the best way to play it. I have made, if you want a full breakdown, I have like a 50-minute video on my main channel about what I love so much about System Shock 1. Its world, the way that it tells its story, for one, like, yes, it was fairly groundbreaking in its time to immerse the player into a setting like that in first person, in full 3D, with that much detail and that much. The idea, like, it's a little regular now. It's a little trite to be like, oh, I'm walking around and I'm finding logs about the history of the people who were on this ship. That's whatever. No, that was like a new thing. That was a new thing when that game came out in 1994. That was not typical. That was not something you got from anything else. It was like a new level of immersion. Many people bemoan the interface. I love the interface. As I have said many times, there is no other game that makes me feel more like I'm actually playing a cyborg. And I think it's incredibly cool. The atmosphere, the environments, I love the way the original space station looks. I love the variety of tools that you have at your disposal and all the different ways you could mix and match it. It was so much fun to go back to the game for the video and just do stuff that I'd never done before with like the patches or the hacks and stuff like that. It was a ton of fun. I will also say that the remake is very good. It's a very high quality remake, with the exception of the ending, which I believe they did update. I haven't played the update. Maybe it's better. But 99% of the remake is really high quality. It's faithful to the original. It makes some quality of life updates that if you are if you have a little more trouble with old game jank friction, you'll appreciate. The remake makes the game playable for a number of people. Effectively playable for a number of people. I would definitely recommend it. It sort of comes down to personality and what you're willing to put up with. It just controls like a regular modern video game. I'm going to give 2 big shout outs to the arcane imsims, those being Dishonored and Prey. I've talked about both of these. Yeah, I've talked about both of these on the podcast before, and I find both of these really sterling examples of the 2 main branches that I find the immersive sim genre went down since the 90s. Where Dishonored is a great Thief-like, and Prey is a great System Shock-like. I'll start with Prey. It's basically, this is the 2017 Prey. Everywhere we gotta clarify that. Prey is essentially System Shock 3. It's for all intents and purposes fine. We'll do it ourselves, and it's great at doing that. On a spaceship, there's a strong horror element. In the original System Shock games, I've not played System Shock 2 all the way through, so I don't feel comfortable putting it on here. But it's also probably a recommendation. I'll probably like it when I get around to finishing the whole thing. But Prey has a really interesting, I guess, monster. It's got a great take, almost a spin on an immersive sim trope, where in so many of these games, because the worlds need to be so interactive, they often have tons of very explicitly interactable objects. And Prey kind of spins that on its head and turns it into a horror thing, where a lot of that game, and this isn't really a spoiler, a lot of that game deals with shape-shifting aliens, these bizarre, unknowable aliens that shapeshift into common objects, and you'll walk into a room that's just in total disarray, and you'll see a coffee mug move, and you're like, what? What was that? Or it won't even move. It'll just leap out at you. And so you walk into every room in that game and you go, is that pen gonna try to kill me? On top of just all of the great systems, all of the incredibly cool gadgets that you get, tons of ways to manipulate the environment. You get I didn't even dig into the real like Typhon powers that you get. Slight spoiler, but there's a sort of branching path of how many of these alien powers you want to get. And some of them are really cool. Like some of them you can, like a basic one is you can shape shift into objects and things like that. And you can use that for all sorts of exploration and stealth stuff. Prey is just an awesome experience. Never a dull moment in that game. And then Dishonored, I would say, is an excellent follow-up to the Thief series. Again, like a spiritual successor to Thief. Now, Thief, the first game, is not on this list, not on my list, because personally, I don't actually like the original Thief that much. I talked about it before on the podcast. I haven't dug into its sequels, but I think that the original Dark Project / Thief Gold is definitely like a decent proof of concept, but I just find too many parts of that game bad. I just think that there's more bad levels than good ones by a long shot. Dishonored, I'm assuming it. I hope it improves in the subsequent games, but Dishonored to me is definitely inspired by that. It it leans heavily in the way. So what Thief really did was System Shock was very like RPG-y. A lot of people considered it to be like a first-person RPG. Thief was one of the original like stealth games, at least in in first person in full 3D. A game with a heavy emphasis on stealthy gameplay, where combat is you are usually at a severe disadvantage in combat, and you gotta sneak, and your objective is always stealing something. Well, it's called Thief. Dishonored is much the same way, although I guess it revolves more around assassinations. In my opinion, I think Dishonored is a nearly perfect game. I'm going to be totally honest. Maybe there's some cracks in it that you find on subsequent replays, but I found myself enraptured by it in almost every regard for my entire playtime, to the point that when I put it down and when I finished it, I was trying to come up with things to complain about, and I really couldn't. I can't come up with a single serious complaint that I have about Dishonored. It's just a really, really good game where everything that it tries, it is at least solid in. Just endlessly exciting, interesting puzzle. Like, again, just the high pressure puzzles that this genre is known for. Dishonored it's just excellent. It's just excellent at setting those up for you. There are so many interesting ways to go about situations. I found myself crawling every corner of every map just to find as many secrets as I could and little side quests as I could. The powers are super cool. The world is awesome. I'm a big fan of it. It has a very unique, I guess, fantasy setting. I'd sort of call it. It's a little hacky to say this, but I get whale punk, where it's steampunk is everything revolves around steam power. In Dishonored, it revolves around whale oil, because it takes place on this island nation that's a lot like some horrific blend of the United Kingdom and Massachusetts. Boston. And the setting's extremely cool. The plot, I think that the plot is it's fairly compelling as an excuse to do a bunch of interesting missions that themselves have interesting plot lines. Like, the overarching plot is pretty good. It's serviceable, but the stories told within the missions I really enjoyed, and especially the way that you get a lot of control over how they end. I love that in Dishonored, basically every mission has at least 2 different victory conditions. There's one that you're given at the start of the mission, and then if you explore enough and you talk to people and you find information, or you read something, if you put the effort in, you can basically unlock an alternate win condition for the mission. And I always found those to be way more interesting, which made the game feel really rewarding. So I can't recommend those 2 enough. Those are probably some of the best modern immersive simulators that you'll find. I say modern. 2017 is 8 years ago. Dishonored's even older. Dishonored is like 14 years. Jesus. Modern is just whatever was on the PS3 and before. Sinai picture. Insert here. Haven't played Dishonored 2, although I'm looking forward to it. And now I'm going to go into a couple of honorable mentions for one reason or another. I want to give a shout out to an indie game called Deadeye Deepfake Simulacrum. I'm partially putting this here because I like the developer. I'm actually in the patch notes for this game, which is cool. I got things patched. I got the UI updated because I complained about the the shop menus being hard to read. And they responded to it because the developer sent me that game when it was in an early beta, and I played it on stream, and then I finished it off stream, and I just really liked it. Dead Eye Deepfake Simulacrum is a super cool, I think like under like one, I don't know if it's a one-person dev team, but it's a very, very small, we're calling it a K game now. Super tiny game. It is a top-down immersive simulator with a very stark, interesting aesthetic. It's very like bleak and minimal, like I guess I'd say digital look to it, and it fits the mold. There you go on missions that you are assigned to, and you've got a gajillion ways that you could go about them. My favorite was the hacking. Once I got into the hacking part of the game, I basically didn't look back. Like, maybe there are other playstyles that are cool, but this game genuinely has the best hacking gameplay I've ever seen. It's not just a little mini game that you do. It's that you type in commands. There's a whole language of commands that you can type into your terminal, or that your little like pocket computer. And you connect to all these individual nodes that connect to each other, and some of them are disconnected, so you got to like go over and get physically near them to remote hack in. And at a certain point late in the game, I was beating the missions without ever leaving the first room, because I got close enough to log one node of like a security camera, and then I hacked into that, and then I hacked into the other thing, and then I hacked into this other thing, and I just went around disabling stuff, and then possessing enemies by hacking into them, because everybody's cyber, and then like completing the mission. Like, it's like, oh, you got to kill this guy. I'm not gonna kill him. I'm gonna hack into a dude and then walk into that room and shoot him. Super duper fun. Some of the most fun I've had with an immersive sim. And the game recently went into 1.0. It reached full release. So if you want to check it out, it's like $13 on Steam, which I think it's absolutely worth it. I'm amazed that it hasn't had a price hike since. Like, I've already done like 2 playthroughs of it. It's super fun. It's and it's also got a demo, which you can check out. So shout out to that as like a more recent game. I want to go over 2 more games. One of them is, okay. People often group Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines into being an immersive simulator. And I'm going to be honest, I don't get it. I really don't understand what the justification is, other than I like the game. Like, yeah, I guess it has stealth in it. It's kind of an imsimmy type thing. Like, Fallout games will also get grouped in there, and I also don't know it. I feel like that is too. I have this thing about how I think genres should be useful, and if someone was really into Fallout, I don't know if they would necessarily like, I don't know, the System Shock remake. Those just feel like too different, you know? There's a bit of a sniff test involved with these things. So I personally wouldn't put Vampire Bloodlines in an immersive simulator list, but I would still recommend that you play it, because it's a really cool RPG. Super jank. Go find the, what is it, the Plus patch? Or no, it's the unofficial patch, which comes with an optional Plus version. You go play it patched, and it's just a good RPG. I don't know what else to tell you. Also, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. This is not a game that I have personally played, but I did watch the entire I did watch my friend Prox play through the entire game on stream. I frequently co-host his stream, and we played through that whole game with me in the call. and it's pretty cool. That is a cool game. It's also, it's a little more on the linear end. It could accurately be described as a first-person fantasy or action RPG. But it definitely has some of those inklings of immersive simulatoriness in it. Namely with just the amount of interaction that you get with the environment. It probably has the greatest kick in all of gaming. They were really showing off their physics engine. Because you can just kick enemies into shit. You can kick them into spikes. You can kick them off cliffs. It's honestly a little overpowered. There's tons of other stuff. You get some cool magic abilities. There's a bunch of different builds that you can go with that give you different options. I believe there is some stealth aspect to it, although it's not as heavily emphasized. And there's some other cool stuff like fairly realistic fire spreading. Things that are wood will catch on fire, and then it'll spread to other wooden things. And if you kick an enemy into that, of course, you have to kick them. They'll catch on fire and stuff, and it's cool. It's got a lot of those cool overlapping systems, but a little more concentrated into a more linear package. So I would actually say that one's worth checking out as a cool game, definitely at least adjacent to the sim genre. Weird how genre is a French word. I guess I never really thought about that. There's some other games. There's a couple of Stalker games I haven't played. Pathologic. I've heard great things about Pathologic. I haven't checked that one out. And at some point, I do want to give Ultima Underworld a good try. Back when I made the Myst video, yes. I needed some footage of Ultima Underworld, and I already own it on GOG. So I booted it up, and I got a few minutes of gameplay, and it is definitely... I don't love the controls. It's a little stiff and weird feeling. It's definitely an early first-person pseudo 3D game. Is there a source port? There might be a better way to play it that's a little smoother. And maybe it's a case where you take rip some of the jank out, and it allows you to actually get in touch with what's cool about it. Hey, speaking of, that's my immersive simulator recommendation sort of list. 9's a very specific number. Is that like when people make their 3x3s? Their 3x3s of different things. Just a very specific number. In any event, speaking of ripping jank out of stuff, on my little break from video making after the Michael Jordan video came out, I was feeling a little restless and like, I got this energy now and I want to do something. I want to get around to something. I have some psychic want and I'm not sure how to satisfy it. So I thought, why don't I boot up Wizardry 8 again and I'll just make a party. And then I spent 40 minutes on that, just making the party. And it was really enjoyable. And then I thought, maybe I'll just play, I'll play the first dungeon, just to go back a little bit, touch the game again. And then I went way further than that first dungeon. I played for like 6 hours. I think I'm coming to the conclusion that Wizardry 8 is just my favorite RPG of all time. I can't claim to be the most... better than FF6? They're in slightly different categories. And what's funny is that I would put them at the top for very different reasons. No other game scratches the itch like Wiz 8 does. Brenda Romero, I forget what her maiden name was, but now she is she's been married to John Romero for a while. Two goats joined at the altar. She was a playtester for almost every Wiz game until Wizardry 8. And then she became basically the lead designer. I forget what the exact role was. She was essentially like lead designer on Wizardry 8. And you can feel years of frustration about why can't we just make it like a fucking normal video game? Why do we have to be so hostile towards the player wanting to play the game? And there's so much stupid, dumb, nonsense bullshit that's taken out from the previous games. It's funny how I have this rising arc of enjoyment of the Wizardry series, where in the early games I'm like, well, I appreciate it. It's historically important. And then you get closer with like Wizardry 6, and it's like, yeah, I could play a couple hours of Wizardry 6, but I just eventually get frustrated with how fucking bad the dice rolls are, and I just can't hit anything. And then I play Wiz 7, and I'm like, man, I love the aesthetic. I can actually play the game, kind of. I can get through the first dungeon. Man, there's just this jank. There's just there's so many things that are stiff. The menus suck. It all just piles up, and then I get to Wizardry 8, and it's like enough of the limiters get taken off, and it's like it turns into like, oh, this is actually just crack for my brain. This is just the best feeling RPG I've ever played. If Final Fantasy VI has one of the most moving stories and one of my favorite casts of characters, and to be fair, really good gameplay, Wizardry 8 is on my list for just raw game feel. And some people are gonna not be that into the combat, but man, I love phased time combat. It is the most satisfying thing to me to enter combat and have to think about positioning of my party and queuing up actions and the distance that I am from the enemy and positioning where I even am when I get into combat so that I don't get surrounded. And then all of the different, just the rigmarole of the combat feels so good to me. Leveling up feels amazing. I love putting points into skills. Something about putting points into skills feels so good in that game. And what's messed up is that there was all this stuff that drove me crazy the first time I played it. And now I just know how to deal with that stuff. Like, if anything was going to make me drop that game, it was going to be the horribly convoluted quest lines that the game barely tells you. It's the type of game where you walk into a location and an NPC says, hey, go there and do this. And that's optional. That is purely optional. And then it turns out that there's a mug sitting in the corner of one room in an unmarked house in the village. And picking up that mug is how you begin the next part of the critical quest line. And you just have to know that. And you just have to connect that all of these seemingly unrelated things actually connect to each other, and you got to do this. And now I just know what to do. I have a basic memory of how to do the quest lines, how to do all that bullshit with the Trinies, where to go in the Rapax castle, that guy who kidnaps your friend. Like, I know all of that bullshit. Oh my god, luring the Rapax to the Trang base. All of that convoluted nonsense that the game vaguely suggests you need to do is just in my brain already because I've done it once. I'll probably have to look up something to remember the specifics, but Essentially, yeah. I understand how the overly convoluted skill system works. It's a good system. It's a good system. I like it. It's just really hard to wrap your head around. And even playing it again, I had to reacquaint myself with, okay, so there's, so when talking about magic, it's really bad with the magic system. There are, how many caster classes? There are, let's see, mages, priests, psionics, alchemists, and bishops. Those are 4 specialists, and the bishop is like a super hybrid of all of the classes. And there are 4 different spell books. Wizardry, psionics, alchemy, and divinity. So each of those, you can imagine, each of those pure specialists specialize in those spell books. However, learning spells is not just like, oh, the divinity spell book. Oh god, so then there's the spell realms, and there's like 6 of them. There's the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air. And then there are psionics and divinity. And you'd think like, oh, okay, wizardry learns all the elemental stuff, psionics learn the psionic stuff, so on and so forth. Yes, but also, if you're like an alchemist and you are not, the alchemist characters do not purely read out of the alchemy skill, like, there is no, like, you might have noticed there, I didn't mention an alchemy realm. That's because it gets more complicated. Alchemy specializes in a bunch of stuff, namely water, earth, a little bit of divine, and you can learn out of air. Because the spell books, as they're called, that have the spells that you can learn, are not just coded to, like, if you learn the wizardry spell book, you can learn shit from psionics. There'll be like a couple random psionic spells in there that you can learn. You can't look it up. You have to, it's not in game. You have to go look up a list someone's made of all of the spells that each of the different spell books have access to. And of course, there are different skills for the spell book and the spell realm. So the spell book, so if I put points into divinity, divinity, it means that I get to learn higher level spells out of the divinity spell, like, category. But my divine magic improves when I put points into the divine skill. So it's so, like, needlessly complicated, and, like, it works out. Once you understand it, it works out, and it actually feels good because you get to really, like, play around. You get to play the field. So I've got a priest in my party this time, and the priest namely studies out of the divinity book. But you don't just learn divine spells, you can also learn, like, water spells, such as holy water, which is it's an anti-undead spell, and it is out of it's from the water realm and not the divine realm, not the divinity realm. So you kind of get to go around, and it's like, okay, yeah, it actually is somewhat useful to put points eventually into some of the other spell realms, because you're going to be multi-classing a little bit. This is wizardry. Everyone multi-classes a little bit. It's hard to make a pure specialist in wizardry, because eventually you're like, I just don't know where to put my points. Even just playing normally and not even grinding. So my party this time is pretty fun. I'm going with a solid base party with a few picks I haven't done before. So I've got a fighter, a Valkyrie, who's like my other fighter slash tank. She's a little tankier. And Valkyries get to a little bit of divine magic as well. So they're also like hybrid. Valkyries are weird because there's already a paladin class in Wizardry games. They're called lords, and they are physical fighters who have a focus on defense and are also like can do divine shit. Valkyries are like that, except they are exclusively for women, and they are, I would probably slightly more offensively inclined. Also, they cheat death. If they die, they get a res. They get a free resurrect, I think once every whatever. Or they at least have a good chance to cheat death. They have like a saving throw that no one else gets. My casters, I'm taking a mage. Sorry, not a mage. I'm taking a priest and an alchemist. And alchemists are super cool in Wizardry 8 because the realms that they specialize in are namely earth and water. But while they get access to, there's like this whole crafting system I never did in my original playthrough. There's this whole crafting system that I ignored because it was complicated, and there's no real interface for it. You just have an option to merge items from the inventory screen, and you can make potions. You can make potions out of ingredients. There is no list. You just have to figure it out or look it up, more likely. The alchemist also makes potions while you're resting, and you're going to be resting a lot. Like, resting in between every battle or two is a very common thing in this game. So later in the game, it absolutely breaks the economy, because once you get higher in your, once you put enough points in their alchemy spellbook, they get access to making higher and higher level potions, like the best healing potions that like max out your stamina and also remove all of your debuffs. And they'll just make those for free, not even taking ingredients out of your inventory. They'll just generate them. And those are worth way more gold, and you can just sell those off at town or at any vendor and break the economy, which is cool. That's a fun thing to be able to do. And then I've got a rogue, because I need someone to pick locks, and I love picking locks in this game. Not picking locks. I hate picking locks. I like disarming traps. Traps are, honestly, disarming traps in the latter Wizardry games are some of the coolest trap disarming mini games I've ever played. I love the whole you got to check for the trap, and then there's all of these different mechanisms that it could be, and depending on the character's skill in lockpick, it's traps and lockpicking, it's all one skill. They can figure out after inspecting it. The higher it is, the more definite results they'll get. And it's like, okay, so there are a number of traps that it could be. So you got to scroll down this list based off of what mechanisms the rogue thinks is in there, either with a sure guess or a maybe. And then you got to click those mechanisms on the screen, and then they disarm it. And the sound effects for disarming traps in Wiz 8 are divine. They are absolutely phenomenal. Like the whoever did the sound effects, it feels so good to disarm traps. There are certain things that you can only do. There's so much interesting, like there's a part of the, I'll talk about this. And then I've got a ninja. And ninjas are considered a very advanced, difficult class because they suck for a while, and you need to put a lot of points into them before they become incredibly busted. So I'm playing a throwing-based ninja who's just going to be throwing shit all game. And it works out okay. I'm mainly doing it because I've never played a ninja in a Wizardry game. And I'm not going with a fairy ninja, actually, which is a very popular build. I'm going with a, Felper? I love the setting. I love the setting of this game. I love that you're walking around a medieval village and then you turn a corner and there's a spaceport and robots walking around. It's so cool to me. I think that if I saw the opening cutscene of Wizardry 7 with the Dark Savant and like Aletheides, this like silver and white android in wizard robes. If I saw that as a kid, I think it would have changed the course of my life. And I say that because it had an incredibly strong effect on me as an adult. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. There's this really, so in that like first town that you go to, there is a bunch of optional stuff. I'm trying to think about what is technically the most critical path. I think if you know where to go, you probably don't even have to visit Arnica, which is the first town. I think you could just go straight to Trenton. And then that's where so much shit happens in Trenton. They focused so much stuff on that in that map. I think, yeah. And there's this whole, like, you can go into the guard. You do have to go back because they have what is it? The Astral Domine? Whatever the orb is. There's like 3 MacGuffins you're trying to get throughout the game. And they got the orb in the Mook headquarters. That's there. That's what, in the embassy. And you gotta steal that. And I find it interesting that it's like, okay, there's a building that is the headquarters of essentially their local police force. And if you try to walk in, there's a scanner thing that scans you and it goes, you don't have access, you don't have an ID tag. So how do you get an ID tag? You have to break into their prison and then steal an ID tag from the locker. And for some reason, they have the ID tag just in someone's random locker in the front office. And I say, that's not weird. It's not weird to have someone's tag there. It is weird that it is the tag of the guy who betrayed them over 100 years ago, who is a central character in this game. A character named Martin, who you interact with as a ghost. He basically found the locations of these magic MacGuffins and stole them and ensconced. He fled away, and he's been wanted. He was wanted for so long that they just said he's probably dead by now. We don't care. But he's still a pretty well-known figure in their history. And for some reason, they just have his ID tag not in some storage locker in the back or anything like just in like the front employee locker. It's just so weird. And you have to break into the prison and grab that, and that's how you can go into the what is it? The Legion whatever police department. I found like a mini dungeon in Arnica that I did not know was there. Somehow I just completely missed. I spent so much time in that town the first time I played this game. I completely missed that there was just a whole like little dungeon there. It's not very long, but there's stuff in there. There's like some underground vaults, and it's I don't know how I just skipped that. Yeah, it's a great game. It's a great game. I just love doing stuff in it. And it pains me because I know that we aren't going to get another game. I want to see something that does its style of combat. I need the full 3D phase time combat, just like Wizardry 8 does. It's so good. Just that whole mix of the way the combat works, the fact that there's like 16 different classes and all these different races that have their own bonuses and stuff, and this really in-depth skill system. So Ugh. Ah. I love this game. I love this game. And it bums me out that whenever we get a new Wizardry game, it's not just that I like Wizardry I'll put an asterisk on there. I like some parts of Wizardry. But the Wizardry that we get now is not the Wizardry that I like. I don't even, within its niche, I don't even like the popular stuff. It's essentially relegated to Japanese spin-offs. I don't think they're making a mainline Wizardry game anytime soon. It's just spin-offs because I believe the license is owned by a Japanese company at this point. It was always bigger in Japan anyway. And whenever they make a new Wiz game, it's always like the original. I think of it as an original trilogy, even though it's 5 games. It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a trilogy of 5 books, but this is a trilogy of 5 games. Because the first 3 Wizardry games are more like one game with 2 expansions. Nowadays, that's what we would call it. It's just they released them as individual games because it was 1980 something, and you can't release like an expansion pack or DLC. Yeah, like 1 through 3, and then 4 and 5 are like pretty clearly all sequels to each other. Well, 4 is like a weird spin-off, and it's weird and inferior. I want to make a video about 4 sometime. But that's definitely like a whole arc of the series that has a definitive... The fact that you can take one save file from Wizardry 1 all the way through, skipping 4, because it's weird, all the way through to 5. And to me, and then the buck stops at 6. 6 is different, and that's when the new fellow... What is his name? I forget what his name was, but he was the dude who made Wizardry 5 that saved the series. Bradley. Yeah, David Bradley. He did 5, 6, and 7. 5, which saved the franchise. And then 6, which kind of kicked off his own style of Wizardry, where he started infusing the sci-fi elements, which, as I've stated, I'm super into. I think it's really unique, and it is painful for me to go on. It's ridiculous to go on like RPG Codex, which you should never do. Never go on RPG Codex. Do not talk to old school CRPG fans. I have never seen a community with a greater like coin flip of really cool to guy you do not want to be around at all costs. And see people saying shit like, I hated that they went sci-fi. Like, oh, you were so starving for traditional Tolkien-esque fantasy. There's no one's making a classic fantasy game. What am I gonna do? Just play these 1,000 other games that are just trying to be Dungeons and Dragons again? Woe is me. It drives me crazy. Because it's so cool and so distinctive, and I haven't seen another series that really does that blend in the way that they did it. But every time that there's a new spin-off, like, okay, the most recent Wizardry game is this mobile gacha game called Wizardry Variants Daphne. And it's obviously a Japanese spin-off thing. It's a gacha game. And I tried it. I tried it on my telephone, and it's okay. I thought it was fine. It's a gacha, and it's got RPG gameplay. Typically, actually, the reviews of the gameplay tend to be that it actually is a very good game. It just has all that gacha bullshit that drags it down, and horrible monetization and FOMO bullshit. But as a game, it's pretty good. I remember thinking after a few hours that it was pretty good. I just was not that interested in what it was doing, if that makes sense. And that is a very traditional, guess what? It's like the original trilogy. It's a very traditional first-person dungeon crawler with turn-based combat and classic fantasy stuffs. They added beast people, which is different because they need... Now, Wizardry always or often, especially post Bradley Wizardry, he started introducing like the Raw Wolf and the Felper and the Umpani, but those are like straight up animal people. They're like bipedal animals. That's a wolf. They're closer to furries than anime cat girls, if that gives you a better idea. I love the Umpani. They're so cool. The rhino guys that dress like pirates for some reason and use muskets despite being a spacefaring race. Like, that stuff's cool to me. Variance Daphne was like, well, yeah, it's like a girl with big boobs and she's got, she's got animal ears. And it's like, all right, I mean, I guess I like the boobs. Show me an Umpani, man. Show me a mook. Show me the Trang. Show me a weird slug, snake, spider thing. The tragedy of being me. My life is so hard. My life is so hard. You know who life is hard for? The Ship of Heroes developer. This is an extremely me-focused drama. I have spoken at fair length on this podcast, as well as in some old videos, about my love for the semi-defunct MMO City of Heroes. I first discovered it when I made my original Dead MMOs video, where I talked about MMOs that had died and then been resurrected via private, I call them legacy servers. And I had such a good impression that it's the only game... I've now made 2 of those videos, and it's the only game of the 6 that I talked about that I continue to go back to every once in a while. And sometimes I get really into it for a little bit. I'm looking at the word wizardry on my screen. So City of Heroes is a genuinely, in my opinion, I think it's a great game and a very interesting alternative. I say alternative take on an MMO, but it was sort of in some ways an evolutionary dead end because it was never really copied once it ended service. It was sort of blown out by the sheer popularity of World of Warcraft and the tropes that WoW introduced into the genre. To the point that if you're used to MMOs, there's a good chance that you'll boot up City of Heroes and be very confused about how progression works. How there's no gear system? There's not really an inventory? Well, how does this work? Well, yeah, there are systems that kind of fill in, serve similar roles, but in a different way. It's a game that's focused on building out the inherent powers of your character and existing within a cool superhero setting. That's like the appeal of City of Heroes, is the character creation and the world. And the gameplay is fine. I will never say that City of Heroes has the greatest gameplay of any MMO. I would never go even close to saying that. But it's cool. And again, because you like and the character that you're playing as, it's just kind of cool to play as that character and do stuff. Especially when you get the higher and higher level powers from the power sets you've chosen. Now, something interesting about the City of Heroes community is that the game ran from 2004 to... City of Heroes shut down. When did that happen? 2012. It shut down in 2012 to the chagrin of the player base. It was going strong. Like it was a game that was not killed because of its own failure. It was for all intents and purposes, killed because of its publisher, NCSoft, the Grim Reaper of MMOs. NCSoft killed the game because it was not... They owned like 20 MMOs, and it was not in their top 7 or whatever, despite the fact that it had a consistent, strong player base and was apparently making more money after they switched to a free-to-play model. The game was killed off quite cruelly, and that led to a lot of upset feelings. And hey, what's something that happens when a lot of players of a game, when you got all these players who are ripped out of their favorite game very suddenly and for no real good reason, what do? They say, we're gonna make our own game with blackjack and hookers. So there were a number of small teams that attempted to make spiritual successors to City of Heroes. Now, some of them actually did come out. Hang on, let me just look up, because there were a couple. Okay, Valiance Online, City of Titans, Heroes and Villains, Red Side, which apparently was... I'm just reading off a list here from MMO Fallout. Apparently supposed to be specifically a follow-up to City of Villains, which was a chunk of City of Heroes. There were a couple of these. Champions Online, which is the only one that has like kind of a budget and came out. The other ones either squandered in development hell and never came out, or they're in like perpetual alpha, beta, because it's hard to make these games. Well, all of these basically got blown out of the water when it was discovered a few years ago that people had been hosting private City of Heroes servers that were invite only, that you kind of had to know someone to get invited, and they had a strict privacy policy. And it was this like secretive thing because they were worried about getting sued or whatever. And then one way or another, I forget exactly how it happened, the word got out. Eventually the cat got out of the bag. Hey, people are still playing City of Heroes, and a lot of those private servers went public. The two most popular ones would be Homecoming and Rebirth. Personally, I'm a Homecoming player. Rebirth, they have their own design philosophy. Both are attempts to preserve the original while adding additional content. They have their own content. And they just have different design philosophies. Personally, I like Homecoming. It's got a nice big population, and it's cool, and I love the game. And I got to play the game. Now, this put a lot of these would-be successors in a very awkward situation, because they were making kind of scrappy successors to this game that everyone thought was dead and gone and not playable anymore. And now it turns out that the original game is actually just back, and you can go play it, and it's fine. So now you are left with this question. Do we even continue? Do we even bother? We all just wanted to play City of Heroes again. We can. Do we keep doing it? Do we keep working on this project? And yeah, I think some of them gave up. A lot of them, however, some of them kept on trucking. Some of them tried to make their own, kind of go off in their own direction. It's like a whole scene of City of Heroes successors. Well, one of those has just come out. One that I discovered a while ago, back when I was making my video, called Ship of Heroes. So Ship of Heroes is one of these kin. And the reason I'm talking about it, if it just came out and flopped, I probably wouldn't say anything about it. But there is a certain surreality to suddenly going onto YouTube and seeing some MMO YouTubers making videos about the not only bad, but disastrous launch of Ship of Heroes. I saw someone's thumbnail. The name of the game was not in the title, because who the fuck... That's not SEO bait. Ship of Heroes is not SEO bait. And I just saw an image of the game that was partially cropped. And I went, is that Ship of Heroes? And it was. So, I remember looking up a couple videos of it when it was in development and thinking, it looks like a project. You know, good on them for trying. I won't shame them for the effort. Am I gonna play it? Well, it depends, I guess, on what it looks like when it comes out. I might try it out. I don't know if I would have tried it out if I found out it was a $60 upfront purchase. And this is where you're like, oh, this is totally fucked. This is completely fucked. Dude, it's not 2007 anymore. You can't launch an MMO for $60 up front. And they try to justify the business model. A big part of this whole kerfuffle is that the lead developer is incredibly combative and super defensive of his game. And I get it. You worked on this for a long, long time. It's been like 12 years. But man, a lot of people just found out about it. And they do not give a fuck how long you took to work on a game that you are charging $60 for that you should not be charging $60 for. Like, there are... You can't launch an MMO like that, man. I don't think you can launch any... I don't think you can launch a game like that, any kind of persistent online game, for more than $10, maybe $20. Path of Exile is selling for like $30. Path of Exile 2 is selling for like $30 because it's in a beta. And once it comes out, it'll be free to play. But it's like, this is a beta, and this is our way of funding further development. Cool. I'm fine with that. I can hold off on that. I'm not going to like put that past them. They've established that they can make a good game. If you're just some random small team and you're like, with all of the games vying for your attention in all of the genres, with, mind you, one of those being the literal game that they are trying to be, that is free to play and has a good population and gets somewhat frequent updates, like content updates. They add new power sets. They add new raids. You cannot... You just can't do this shit, man. Like, psychologically, you cannot put that in front of someone because they're just going to go, it's not worth it. I don't... You need to have some... Like, okay, just off the top of my head... Free trial with a oh my god, it's not just $60, it's also like a $10 or $15 subscription monthly. Buying the game comes with, I believe, a full month of game time, but it's $15 a month after that. Fucking crazy. No. What? Like, okay, I have the games. It is $15, right? Oh, the store page. God, mostly negative. Mostly negative reviews. They do not have it listed on the store page, at least not easily findable on the store page. So yeah, it's just you need some kind of try before you buy. That's why free-to-play models as much as we hate, as much bullshit as they do add into the equation, they're successful for a reason. They give the audience a no upfront pressure. Yeah, sure, I'll try it. It's free. What's the worst that could happen? And then you reward the developers. Hopefully that's how it worked, and it's not like weird scummy tactics like, I don't know, there's tons of ways that you can be unethical about it. But then the idea is that you pay in microtransactions after the fact. That is your way of giving back. Paying for the game. And those can be sustainable even if the majority of people never buy anything and you just have a couple whales. You cannot launch something for $60 with nothing to your name and ask that much of people. And the problem is that anytime people bring this up, even in nice ways, like constructive ways, the developer is super dismissive and is like, he claims he's getting review bombed. He claims that people are out to get him. He keeps posting about all of the features that the game has. And what's so he's super fixated. It's clear that he has no idea what he's doing. He is super fixated on the optimization and the frame rate and how many players they could fit into a raid. That's his selling point. The game runs really well. He keeps bringing this up. The game runs really well with 50 players on screen. And it's like, dude, we're not getting that far. No one's getting into these raids. They aren't playing them. Let's go to the community hub. Wait, what is this? Hang on. The devs made an announcement. Oh, good. They've made a patch. They've made an announcement about the pricing model. The price is going to be dropped after 30 days. They're dropping $30? Like what? That's still too high. That is still way too high. I haven't even talked about the actual game. So, first of all, the game looks bad. It arguably looks worse than City of Heroes, which came out in 2004, but does have a modicum of stylization to it. Personally, I play with the cell shading filter on, which some people hate. I think it makes the game look really cool, personally. You can tell it's not really designed with that in mind, but I like using the cell shading mod, and I think it's way more pleasing than how Ship of Heroes looks. They have that horrible, I'd call it like a graphical uncanny valley, where it's I don't know if this is made in Unity, but it has that it's really high quality in some places and really simple in other places. Like, the textures look good. The models look fine. The lighting is bad. It's super simplistic. Everything is really bright. It's a little too shiny. I'm looking at like some of these screenshots that are being posted, and the game practically looks full bright in a lot of these shots. It's like the same problem as the Deus Ex remaster. Everything's just way too bright, and the lights are way too intense. There's too much volume on everything, on all the lighting sources. And there's absolutely no... And it makes some of the bad, like, smooth, shiny looking stuff in the game look even worse. I did a quick look up. I watched a video of the character creation process, and I can confirm it has a worse character creator than City of Heroes. There are less options. The menu is organized worse. And there are less powers. Like, cosmetic and gameplay-wise, it is worse. City of Heroes has an overwhelming amount of options. Like, you just do like archetype selection and you're choosing your first power sets. Your power set for your character, your primary and secondary. And you're like, whoa, this is a lot. And a lot of them have distinct mechanics and little twists and stuff like that. They're not just palette swaps of things. Wildly different. And it turns out you're like, well, okay, well, what's optimal? Maybe I can go look up what's optimal. The game is well balanced enough that it's almost mathematically impossible to come up with the super optimal, most optimal build. So genuinely, it's just whatever you think is cool, which is a great boon to the game in the long run, because really it's about making a character that you think is cool or whatever else. And numbers don't really factor in. It's not much of a min-maxer's game, which some people might be disappointed with if you like MMOs for certain reasons. But yeah, it's not really a min-maxer's game. Ship of Heroes just does not have the number of powers or variety of options available. The visual looks are really, really basic. Nothing really pops. There's a couple cool looking, decent looking, like full sets of appearance, of costume pieces, but nothing go look up the original Living Dead MMOs video and just watch the segment where I go through the City of Heroes character creator. And when I just click random over and over again, just look at the sheer variety of stuff that pops up, from colors to all sorts of different costume pieces with wildly different themes to different types of heads. You can't have an animal head or a floating head. You can't make your head a big eyeball or a floating skull or a fish tank in Ship of Heroes. All things that you can do in City of Heroes. Just basic cosmetic options. There are no patterns. That's another thing. There's a really cool, it's almost like a one of those limitations breed innovation things where they could only put so many different costume pieces into the game. So there is this additional customization layer, which are patterns. And even on top of that, you can put like symbols on top of certain parts of your character. But the patterns, there's like dozens and dozens and literally dozens of different patterns that you can put on different parts of the character's body and then color those individually. So you can get, like, for instance, I made a character the other day because I was literally in the character creator the other day, and I wanted to have sort of like a mesh. How would I call it? Like a superhero suit, but with a little bit of it's like spandex, but like a crisscrossing, like a slightly more detail, almost like a mesh over it, or like a mesh pattern on it. So that's what I did, as if it had like texture, almost like the Man of Steel suit, something like that. And all I did was just I took like a plain spandex design, and then I put like a mesh pattern over it, and I colored it just dark enough that it made it look like it had a real texture to it. And it looks good. It actually looks like a good design. I would just click random sometimes, and I would be like, wow, that's a cool looking character. A lot of times it's just random craziness, but sometimes it hits you with something genuinely really interesting looking. That feels like a character out of a real comic book. And I'm like, wow, I actually want to tweak this a little bit because this is such a good foundation. I want to hold on this. just options that are just not there in Ship of Heroes. There's a couple capes. Customization on the capes is limited. They don't have the auras. They don't have power customization. In City of Heroes, you can change the color scheme of either of your power sets. You can go individually power by power and make their particle effects totally different looking. And there's even presets. There's presets and alternate... Some of them have alternate particle effects that you can then change the color scheme on. So you can be like... So a lot of people take nuclear... radiation blast? Whatever that one is. Nuclear blast or radiation blast. Because it has... That's the one that lets you do X-ray eyes. You do laser eye beams. People love having laser eyes. And I believe the default is green, but you can change it if you want to make Cyclops from the X-Men. You can make it, or Superman. You can take that and just color it red if you want. Options that are not there. And it was like, yeah, wow, this game just genuinely has, and in my opinion, that's the one of the most core aspects of COH. Is that it's like a superhero fantasy. And Ship of Heroes just does not have as good of a character creator. And the problem is that if you have a bad launch on a game like this, unless you're Final Fantasy XIV, you kind of can't. You're probably not going to come back from that. I'm going to be honest. Like, this game is probably not going to last unless the guy is just paying for it out of pocket. Maybe he'll just fund. Apparently, I saw the comment, unsubstantiated, but someone said that they were in the Discord for this game for a few years, and that the lead developer is some retired guy in his 60s, and it's like, yeah, that kind of tracks. He might just be paying for this with his infinite pension fund or his payoffs from stock investments or something like that. He's just like a Gen Xer boomer who is trying to recreate the City of Heroes experience, but worse and more limited. But he might just keep it supported for years from that sweet pension money, from that Social Security that I will never see. My mom was telling me that she was getting really serious about saving now. She's close to her 60s, and she's still working, and she's getting real serious about saving and her finances and stuff. And because she was like, she did some research, and she found out that she's only gonna get like, her Social Security is gonna be like $70 a month. The social safety net. Like, great, you might be able to buy 2 meals. It's not even like a week's worth of groceries. Yeah, instead the Social Security fund is going, it's going towards paying for Ship of Heroes server costs. Jesus. Yeah. In some ways I feel bad, but the developer has such a bad attitude and is so in his own world, I kind of can't. My desire to feel bad and feel empathy for someone who basically had their project nullified is removed by how bad their attitude is. But I will not tell you to go play Ship of Heroes. I will tell you to go play City of Heroes on one of its existing legacy servers. It's a great time. I think City of Villains, if you make a villain character, I think the City of Villains content is actually better. At least at the start. Because it came later. But yeah, it's a game I very much enjoy. And hey, it's a free download. And it's the best character creator of any MMO ever. So go check that out. Speaking of failures... Okay, I want to talk about this real quick, just because it was so interesting to me. I watched a video the other day about a failed trading card game called Wixoss. I always thought it was pronounced Wixoss, like weak sauce, but no, it's Wixoss. It's spelled Wixoss with an X, but it's because it's Japanese, and they pronounced the X is a cross over there. But yeah, it's Wixoss. That was a TCG that I had heard of, but only ever as some super niche thing. I didn't know anyone who played it. I'd never really seen anything about it. I would just occasionally see it maybe at an anime convention or something like that. Someone had like Wixoss cards. I think... I don't even remember if I'd been... My local game store definitely doesn't carry it. So I watched this video that was like, why Wixoss failed. I was like, sure, I'm interested in that. Like, how is this? I love a good failure story. Who doesn't? And for the most part, I thought the video was pretty interesting. There was a ton of history that I didn't know. The game was horribly mismanaged. Just horribly mismanaged from both the Japanese parent company as well as the distributor that they went with. Just barely supported it. Like, honestly, shocking things. Such as people ordering boxes or stores ordering boxes. And then not getting them because, oh, whoopsie, it got lost or... there's a shortage, and then 2 months later, the distributor would just be holding public auctions for the boxes. And you're like, what the fuck? Apparently there was a guy who was just stealing copies of super rare cards off of the production line in their Hong Kong factory. And and selling them for a fraction of the price. And they just let that guy run for like 2 years. They never looked into it. Crazy mismanagement. But there was this other aspect to why the game didn't really take off that I think that the creator of the video didn't really touch on. But, and maybe for a good reason. Because he might be part of the reason. Full offense intended here. Okay, so Wixoss is it launched as a card game, and it was also it coincided with an anime that was meant to promote it. It was a multimedia push. And the anime had all of its character design. The character designs for the franchise were done by the same artist who did Toradora and a couple other things. It's that lady, and I think she wrote the anime as well. And so it's very anime character designs. It's big booby ladies and sexy anime girls, and I think that there's male characters, but you never see them. And so he's talking about, at the start of the video, he's talking about all the things he loved about Wixoss, and he's like, oh, the gameplay was amazing, the art was great, it introduced me to my waifu Tama, and it just kind of slips by in this whole list of other things. But the moment he says that, like, on screen, he shows this character, like, he's going through his cards, and he's shows this character who looks like a 10-year-old girl. And I was like, was that the right... Okay, well, I'll just keep watching. And then later on, a short while later, he then starts talking about why the game, he goes into this list of why the game, for instance, didn't take off as well in the US and or outside of Japan. And, segueing into the main topic of the video. But he goes through some minor things first. And one of them is, he says, Westerners who are afraid of a certain 4-letter word. And he's clearly talking about, and he shows, he like slightly fades in, like quarter opacity on screen of some like fucking, I don't remember what character it is. It's like a Monogatari or the Kana from Dragon Maid or something like that. And it's very obvious he's talking about the word lowly. And then he like the video goes on and he's and it becomes very obvious that his waifu, Tama, was this 10-year-old looking girl character. Like an extremely childish looking character. And he's like going through, and so some of the B-roll he's using is just his collection of different alt arts and different versions of Tama. And I'm like, oh yeah, man. This like, and then you see like, let me look up some of the, hang on, Wixoss playmats. What do they look like? Official Wixoss playmats, because I think the game is still going in Japan. Okay, that's fairly oh, okay, there's a bunch of girl characters laying on a bed. There's just a bunch of anime girls staring at each other. Yeah. Okay, no, I'm looking at the art. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Ooh, that's a lot of skin. Like, there's this thing in TCG communities about what is an acceptable playmat or card sleeves. Because, you know, you can put whatever the fuck you want on a playmat or a card sleeve. And generally, it's like, do not have the one with all the titties out at the store. Maybe, like, don't use those. It's just kind of odd. Like, this is a thing with Yu-Gi-Oh, right? This comes up with Yu-Gi-Oh as the most popular TCG that has an anime-skewed art style, where it's like, don't show up with, like, you know, your playmat of Burstinatrix with her pussy out. Just, like, there could be, like, have a little fucking tact. And I don't want to be, I will be mean. Do you guys know about the halo effect? It's the idea that it's a cognitive bias that we have as humans, where we see surface level qualities of someone or something, and we use that to make assumptions about deeper qualities. Like, this is what, like, pretty privilege is. If you are conventionally attractive, people are more likely to also assume, knowing nothing about you, that you're also nice or a good person or that you're acting in good faith. And if you look conventionally unattractive, they're more likely to be like, to also assume bad things about you. This is why you see, like, conventionally ugly men. You could, sometimes I'll see a video and it's a conventionally ugly man, right? And he's just having kind of an, I'll say, unsuccessful social interaction with a woman. And people in the comments will just be fucking brutal. And it's not, in my eyes, like, if I look at it objectively, it's not even like that bad. Like, it's a social setting and he's like maybe trying to approach her or something. It's not even that bad. It doesn't go very well. Like, maybe he doesn't have great social skills. And people are just fucking eviscerating him and about talking about how he's like a fucking creepy rapist and stuff like that. But if that guy was way more conventionally attractive, maybe people would still be calling him a creep for one reason or another. Don't approach women. Don't approach women in any social situation ever. But a lot nicer, right? So I know that. I understand that. I know that I have that bias. Everyone has that, and you kind of have to just keep it in mind. But okay, I'm looking at these pictures of Wixoss players at events that this YouTube video is showing as B-roll and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, these guys, because they're all guys, look like they would be really into this game. There's just a certain look. You know, different games have different looks. And I don't know why that is. Well, I do know, but I don't want to be rude and say it. But just certain types of crowds get attracted to different games. I have a friend who now works. I know him from Fab. He's going to be giving me a ride home tonight from our local. I have a friend who now works at our local game store because he's super knowledgeable about all the important stuff that the store sells. And I asked him, who are the worst types of customers who come in? Or who are the worst customers, right? And, well, he gives me, at the bottom of the barrel is, people who are, into scalp or whatever, because they're just fucking annoying. They show up there at the ass crack of dawn as soon as the store opens, and they are clearly, they don't care about the games. They're just trying to scalp. Those people are annoying. But then he starts getting into people who have One Piece players, he has told me, are notably annoying. They are notably the One Piece trading card game. People who play that are specifically, not socially awkward, but just if someone fucking is screaming in the store, it's always a One Piece player. We compared a pop-off. We compared pop-offs between our... Okay, the other thing is that we have to be snooty Fab players because we play the Thinking Man's hyper-competitive card game that's super complex and it's the... We're the sophisticated card game, right? So we have to be snooty and look down on other people, and we call the Magic players dogs and stuff like that. But yeah, man, if so, I opened a $100 card a little while ago, and when I did that, we all went, "Oh, hey, nice, yeah." And I think that if you were across the store, you might have heard it a little bit. Someone on the other end of the store where they're playing One Piece opened a $30 card, which that's a decent hit, right? You're like, hey, nice. You know? They fucking shrieked. I was like, what the fuck what, did something happen? And then not only did they shriek, everyone around them started screaming. And the reason that they were screaming, as my friend later found out, was because he had pulled an alt art version of a character where her tits were more exposed. And yeah, there's just a certain kind of player who goes towards certain games. It's just different audiences, right? Why that happens, I can't exactly tell you. You notice that also in fighting game communities. There's just kind of trends that you notice. And I look at Wixoss and I think that it's so funny that this guy is it's bullshit that the game was treated like this, and it's bullshit that people weren't into it. Also, I'm a pedophile. We all love playing our cards with our little girls with their titties out. Why the fuck didn't anyone play this game in America? And I think, not to judge, but perhaps acknowledging a level of nicheness is inherent to your game for one reason or another could be helpful. Anyway, I'm going to talk about something that happened this week to me. Usually I front load these at the start of the podcast, but there's no fucking rules now, baby. Anyway, or this technically was last week. I went to another Fleshwater show in San Francisco. I saw them last year at the Boiler Room, and they're I guess I've mentioned them once or twice. They're one of my favorite modern bands. They recently released a new album that I'm really into. Kind of like their first album. I started off like, yeah, this is good, and then I just kept listening to it. Something about their music just clicks super hard for me, and stylistically it's just my jam. It is just my jam. I used them at the start of the Illbleed video. So I'm not the biggest live music guy in that I'm not just chomping at the bit to go to my next show or whatever, but I do enjoy, if I'm really into an artist, it is really cool to go see them live. It's a different experience. It's great. The show itself was great. I liked the openers. The energy of the crowd, and this was true last time, and maybe it's just the area, or I don't know, maybe it's just because they are the headlining act, whatever, they are the main act, but Fleshwater crowds have wonderful energy, just super high. Someone got thrown into a security guard. Someone was crowd surfing and got thrown into a security guard at the front of the stage. Apparently, I talked after the show to a guy who got there early specifically so he could be near the barricade, the very front. And he said that as soon as Fleshwater started playing after 2 opening acts, the barricade just immediately flipped. The crowd was great. People were cool. I had a great time. I thought the set was pretty good. There was like one song from the new album that I wish they had played that they didn't, that I was like bummed out about, and it made me I walked out and I just wanted to see them again. I had an awesome time, and there's a couple things I wanted to go into specifics about. Namely, so there were 2 interesting interactions that I had. When I went, one of them was terrible. I had a bad interaction with another human being. On my way into the venue, it was at the Fillmore in San Francisco again. I got the wave, I got the wand, like wavy thing to detect any metal on me or something, and I got cleared, and then I walked, and there was another guy who was doing additional pat downs. And I was like, sure, okay, sure. So I T-pose, and as he's patting me down, he starts asking me if I have any blades or sharp objects on me, and I say, only my sharp wit. And he did not like that. He did not like that at all. He scowled at the ground. He didn't look at me after that. And I was like, all right, man. Look, can you lighten up a little? Your job is to figure out if someone has violent objects on them or they're gonna fucking bomb the venue. Can you have a little fun, dude? He did not like that shit. The second interaction was... So I didn't mention when I said it was a bad interaction. It was bad because of me. I am responsible for the bad interaction. The other one, I wouldn't say was bad. It was just... Okay, so... Again, while I was waiting in line, there was a member of staff for the venue who was going down and saying that if anyone wanted to go to the bar, that we needed to provide an ID, that we were over 21, and then we'd get a wristband. And I I'm not an alcohol drinker, but I was planning on getting something to drink at some point. So I figured that if I was standing around with an ambiguous drink in my hand, I just didn't feel like getting age checked by the staff. So I might as well just get the wristband. Needless to say, I was fairly confident that I appeared somewhat adult. I was there by myself. I don't know. You guys have seen me in my videos. I guess I could presumably pass for being under 21, but I feel like I could easily pass. I'm getting preemptively defensive going into this story. Pass for, over 21. And I'm a 23-year-old man. I'm a man. Soon to be 24, which feels like kind of scary. So before the second opener, I was chilling out on the balcony, in the balcony area that they have that overlooks the main floor. And I figured that I knew that I was going to be working up a bit of a sweat once Fleshwater came on. I always kind of chill out and sit down during the openers, because like straight up, I am not moshing for an opener. I need to conserve some energy. I don't care how good they are. I'll get into it, but I'm not doing anything very hard. So before the second opener, when the floor cleared a little bit and people are moving around during setup, I went down to the bar, and there was a couple it's a fairly long bar, and the bartender at the end, I walked up to him and he said, "Hey, what can I do for you?" And I said, what sodas do you have?" Now, I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit, but this is approximately like in my mind how it felt. Because as soon as I asked for a soda, he changed a little bit, and he goes, "Oh, well, we have a Coke, we have Diet Coke, we have Sprite, we have ginger ale." And I said, I'll have a ginger ale. And he goes, "Sure can do, buddy." And I was like, okay. So I pay for it, and he just takes a can of ginger ale and puts it in a cup. And when he's done, he puts the cup on the counter, and he goes, "Do you want me to make it awesome?" And I said, "Sure." And he put a lime on the rim of the cup. And I said, "Thank you." And I took my drink and I walked back up to the balcony. And I thought about it for a little bit. And what's so fucked up, like, okay, like, why did it have to be children's entertainer mode, man? Like, I had the wristband. Maybe he probably couldn't see it, I guess. What's so fucked up about it is that he was being earnest. He was not talking down to me. He was genuinely being nice, and I think in his mind, as soon as I asked for a soda, he thought that he was going to be really nice and be like, "Oh, I'm going to make a fun memory of a nice interaction at a show for this little boy who is probably here with his parents." No, I'm 23 years old. I pay taxes. God damn it. I can drink. I want a ginger ale's it's an adult drink. It's kind of sophisticated. It has, It's got ginger in it. It's not like an apple juice. Oh, apple juice, it's so childish. But you put alcohol in it, suddenly it's an adult drink. Like you're adult. I think ginger ale is more adult drink than that. Fuck you. It was good, and it hydrated me, and I felt good by the time I went down to the actual dance floor for Fleshwater to come out. Because I get into it. I'm a bit of a I wasn't in the pit. I was like one layer of people back. I kind of moseyed, sort of scooted my way through a couple people to get closer to the front. It was very tight. It was very hot. I sweat. I knew I was going to sweat a lot just from the proximity of people. I was going to be hot, and then to say nothing of how much I was actually going to be moving. So I had a great time, and I also want to do a quick product shout out. I don't know how quick this is actually going to be. Nothing's ever quick with me, ladies. So the last time that I went to a show, I came out and my ears were ringing. And it was ringing for like an hour or two. And if you don't know, ringing in your ears is the sound of hearing loss. It's the sound of your hearing being damaged. There are tiny hairs in your ear canal that pick up on different frequencies of sound. And when they are overstressed, they can break and they don't heal back. And the reason that they are ringing is because ringing is your brain's version of white noise. And usually we just tune it out, but there's always a little bit of ringing in your head, in your ears. Like right now, you're probably going to start noticing it. But we don't usually think about it because we just tune it out because we're so used to it, the same way that, we tune out our noses, even though technically we're always looking at our noses. Our brain just kind of ignores it. And the reason you hear ringing after a really loud event is because your brain isn't used to suddenly not having certain frequencies. Now, I haven't been to too many things where my ears were ringing, but my dad was really into the San Francisco punk scene when he was in his 20s. And he went to so many shows that he has lasting tinnitus. He cannot... I finally put it together why my dad always had to sleep with a TV around. My parents always had a TV in their room, and then when they got divorced, my mom took the TV, and my dad started sleeping on the couch. And the reason for that was because that's in the living room was where there was a TV. And he needs a low level of noise at a certain frequency so that he can actually fall asleep, and it's not painful, because it's like he gets... It can get bad enough that he has really bad headaches from the really intense ringing in his ears. So that's something that I've been... It's in my head, okay, I know that can happen. And what really got me to think about it was, one, the show that I went to. And also there's another YouTuber named Swell Entertainment. She does videos that are mainly event reviews. I like them a lot. She just goes to random events, stuff she doesn't know anything about, and she just learns about the things. She talks to people. She really engages with the subject matter, and she does a whole review of the organization of the event and what was offered, and how was the security, and how are the lines, and how was this and that, and did the staff seem prepared, and all that. And that's her main jam. And she made this video a while ago about some influencer con that she went to. And it was just a very sad networking event. But there was this, I believe it was the Instagram TikTok after party that she attended, where the music was so loud that she got permanent hearing loss, noticeable damage to her hearing. And after that, she started investing into hearing protection. And she recommended these things, with no sponsorship, she recommended these things called loop earplugs. I have used earplugs before. When I was a little kid, my dad took my brother and I to a monster truck show, and I was bored. That's how you know. That's how you know that I have no interest in cars. Because if you don't at least think monster trucks are cool. I was like, what, they just drive around? And I remember they gave out these foam earplugs, and they didn't feel good. They were uncomfortable. They didn't block out that much noise. And most other experiences I've had with hearing protection have been a little kind of lame. I decided to invest in these things. The Loop, I believe the ones I have are the Experience 2s. They look like a little bit like Bluetooth earbuds, like wireless earbuds. They aren't digital. They are not digital or electronic at all. They are just earplugs that you put in, and then you make sure it has a seal in your ear hole, and you kind of twist it down to lock it in the little, kind of tuck it into the back of your ear. At a couple points during the show, I went in with wearing them. I put them in. And at a couple points during the show, I was like, this still feels really loud. It feels really intense. I mean, at one point during the second opener, the bass was so powerful that my chest was shaking. My whole body, and I could specifically feel my chest shaking. And I thought, man, this just feels really I don't know if these are really doing anything. And I would take them out and think and realize, oh yeah, there is a certain level of volume even higher that is being blocked out by these. So okay, it's doing something. I walked out of the show 2 hours of hardcore noise music, and I took them out, and I had no ear ringing. None at all. I didn't even have that weird soft fuzzy feeling that you get when you go to you're in a really loud environment, and then you get out and you're like, ooh, my eardrums, my ear canal feels, yeah, it's that soft feeling. I didn't even have that. I took them off and I felt normal. I had zero ear ringing at all. So, honestly, very impressed. And they're $30, which might seem that seems like a lot for hearing protection. But the fact that they are just a thing that I only have to buy once and they work forever, and it prevents that much, I think that's a pretty good investment. If you're into going to very loud shows or anything where you're worried about your hearing, I would genuinely recommend these. No sponsorship, just saying sometimes corporate product is good product. So I have to recommend the Loop. They have all these different variations. They have one specifically for sleeping. I can't imagine all of them are super different. But for shows specifically, yeah, the Experience 2s. More than good enough. Honestly, very impressed with how they performed. And had a good time. And now I can go to shows with no fear of impairment to my hearing. No fear of long-term hearing damage, which is cool. You know what's not cool? Being a Dissidia fan. I woke up one day and there was a live stream that Square Enix had scheduled. It was really a video premiere for a new Dissidia game. And I felt like the scientist at the start of the disaster movie when they detect the asteroid. And I ask, how close can that thing get to Earth? Then I wake up a few days later, and the trailer has been posted for Dissidia Duellum, whatever it's called. Duellum? Duellum? Duellum. Duellum Lipa. a 3v3 PvP mobile only fighting game something. Team Boss Battle Arena. I'm not... I don't know if I'm just past the point in my life where I very rarely get to... I think the last time I was earnestly disappointed by a game was probably Ruffy in the Riverside, which I found... And that was a case where I had played the demo, and the impression I got from the demo was very different from what the final game was. At least to me. I felt a little blindsided by the actual game. And that wasn't a great feeling. You know, disappointment is not a great feeling. If my hopes never get up, I don't really think I can be disappointed. And at this point with Dissidia and Square Enix and the way that they handle their properties, I really can't expect anything. So, am I mad? Am I upset? Nah. I am whelmed. This is exactly what I think they would do. My whole thing was that I was trying to figure out was whether or not this was like mandatory. Is co-op a mandatory part? Is the design with that in mind, or is that a side thing? And from what I can gather, it's basically designed with it in mind. It's basically a Dissidia again, but not as PvP? I actually don't know. The boss battle arena thing is you are racing the enemy team to fight a big Final Fantasy boss, which is weird. They have a section on the website called System about the game's gameplay, and it's like they have a number called Bravery, and then you have abilities that use your bravery, or yeah, something like that. It's basically been reduced to a meter that you build up and then do a big special attack. Did I mention it's a gacha game? You can see the rarity levels on the characters. UR, SR, R. You can see them in the screenshots. There's some kind of a something called burst, a brave burst. Is that like an EX burst from the old games? I don't know, man. If there's anything cool about it, they've got new artwork from some cool artists for some of the abilities. There's Amino art that they got for like some teleport spell. It's great Amino art. I'll never turn down some good Yoshitaka Amino art. You know me. The visuals are okay. Oh yeah, it's also mobile only. I think I said that before. Mobile only gacha 3v3. They said, how can we make NT better? Let's make it a mobile gacha game. Fuck me, man. I'm working my way up into being upset. So I'll talk about something I don't mind, which are the character designs. I think they look pretty cool. It's like the Final Fantasy characters in modern day Tokyo. Terra is in like a school cardigan. She looks cute. Kryl is also in like a cute little denim jacket thing with a little knitted like cat hat. She's cute. I like Kryl. They've got some goth girl from Final Fantasy 14 expansion, a raid from Endwalker that I have not played. I'm not even through Heavensward. Because I'm a lazy bum. The character designs are kind of cool. No one has a nose in this game. They took out they stole their damn noses. That's another weird aspect of the character designs. When they launched the trailer, they said, sign up for the beta, the Android beta, at this link. And then there was a colon, and then following the colon was parentheses link. Because they put it in a template. They copy pasted a template when they uploaded the video. And then someone forgot to put the link to the beta. The link to the beta in the description. They forgot to update it because I guess it wasn't active. They didn't have a link to put in when it went up. Let's see, is it up? Square Enix, yeah, the official one. Error has occurred. Cool. Nope. They have not. Is there a reason why does the trailer not work? I'm looking at this right now. Does it not work? Okay, they have not added the link. Sign up for closed beta test link. Recruitment available until October 28th. Well, okay, it does work. Okay, that was just a YouTube bug. Will I play it? I guess I'll check it out. I don't fucking care anymore. I can't care about this series anymore. They have to surprise me. I will not get my hopes up for anything that they do with this godforsaken series. Until, yeah, that's it. Just because I know someone would probably be wondering what I think of it. I am kind of a Dissidia guy. I guess hopefully the YouTube video will get some more views. Maybe. I expect to get some comments in the coming months about, did you know there's a new one? And I'll say, yeah. Oh, I know. Something that I'm enjoying more, kind of. All is a little complicated. A little while ago, I started Oddworld, Abe's Oddyssey. I got a big bundle of all the Oddworld games quite a bit ago, and I'm getting around to actually playing through them. So I'm beginning with Abe's Oddyssey. Not new and tasty. I'm playing although I do own it. I am playing the original PC port of Abe's Oddyssey. And I really like it. This is a really cool game. There are parts of it that drive me fucking nuts. Oddworld Abe's Oddyssey has it was a great game to point to illustrate the variety of the PlayStation 1's software offerings. Where one of the things I always talk about with why the PS1 was so popular, why it did so well as a first console, was because of the variety and the breadth of audiences that they appealed to. There are so many types of games on the PS1 for so many different audiences. You could buy a PS1 and you could get sports games. You could get whatever would be the day's equivalent of like the Call of Duty or whatever. Or you could get like a weird experimental game. You could get something like Abe's Oddyssey. You could get great RPGs. You could get cool fighting games. There was just so much on offer. Abe's Oddysey is one of these games that is like, yeah, this appealed to a specific kind of person who found it and was really into it. It is, I guess I would sort of call it a puzzle game. It's maybe the closest that I could describe it. It is a puzzle platformer where you play as Abe, who is what are they called? Monocan, something like that. He belongs to a race on this alien. There's all aliens. He belongs to a race of this alien planet that has been entirely, or almost entirely, I shouldn't say entirely, largely enslaved by these capitalist overlords who put them to work in factories where they just make meat, right? It's, they make packaged, pre-processed meat of the various fauna of the planet. And the game is interesting because it does have a sort of a lighthearted feel to it, but there's these very dark undertones. Obviously, with like there's slavery and the anti-capitalist themes, and Abe as a slave has his like mouth is stitched shut so that he won't talk. The slaves have their mouths stitched shut. Or just, they can open their mouths just enough to, like, eat, I'm guessing. Like, that's pretty dark. That's a pretty dark element to throw in. But in many ways, the game is very lighthearted. And I think the fact that it presents itself so straightforwardly really helps that. All these things just kind of exist. This is just the way that the world is. And it's an odd world. I like that a lot. I like the mood and the tone of the game. And there's some really nice visuals. There's some really nice visuals even through the crunchy, pre-rendered CG backgrounds of this game. It manages to have a real striking visual style. Obviously, resolution-wise, it doesn't hold up. But in terms of art direction, it still looks very nice. Lots of cool stuff with foreground and background elements. Lots of cool stuff with shadows and silhouettes and stuff like that. Really cool. The main plot involves Abe finding out that the profits are down, so they're going to start turning their slaves into meat. They're going to start chopping them up. And Abe's goal then is just to escape. And eventually sort of becomes also to free his fellow Mononokes, whatever they are. So the game mainly plays out over a large series of 2D side-scrolling screens, where your main mode of there is basically no combat in the game. No real direct combat. Abe cannot fight back. There is sort of a sense of weakness. Your enemies tend to be way more powerful than you, and the most you can do is usually just distract them. Or position them in a way where they die, you kill them with something in the environment. Abe is not really a fighter. So there are wild animals and slave drivers and stuff, and you've got to find alternate ways to get around them or defeat them. I would say that one of the most notable, memorable parts of the game is the speech. I think they call it game talk or whatever. One of the main mechanics is that Abe can communicate with his fellow Monogobols. So you can say hello, you can tell them to follow you, you can say wait here, you can make a couple like emote to them a little bit, you can whistle, and you can do a chant that has certain magical properties. Other than that, you're just doing like general platform stuff. You can walk and run and crawl and roll while you're crawling, and hold on to ledges and climb up them, and you can grab stuff, and there's a couple throwable items. And that's generally the set of mechanics that you're working with. Occasionally they introduce this or that thing as a little mechanic for a short while. There's a couple things that you can ride. There's a couple other... You get some psychic abilities later on. And for the most part, it's just a gauntlet of challenges where you're trying not to die and you constantly feel like you're sort of you're always in danger. The good points are that I think that when the game is doing well and presenting you with interesting challenges, it's super fun. There's a whole section I absolutely love when you get really into the wilderness and you start doing these trials and learning like new abilities and stuff. And it's so interesting. It was genuinely interesting to learn these, because a couple like little pattern memorization mini games, essentially. The putting your platforming skills to the test. There's like some mind control stuff you can do that's really cool against enemies. That stuff is great. When the game falters for me is some parts where it feels like a bunch of fucking tedious bullshit. Abe's Odyssey has some moments. It has some levels or segments of levels that you could not convince me were playtested. What the fuck? There's a certain point where some of them are like, what the fuck? It's just trial and error. And yeah, a lot of the game is trial and error, but it's generally not so overbearing that it actually pisses me off. There's some parts of this game that really get under my skin because it's not just the trial and error, it's the amount of wasted time. Like, you have to go through the game requires more precision of you as you progress through it. Where genuinely the wiggle room for the timing of your inputs gets to almost nothing. You essentially have to be buffering everything that you're doing. From immediately, as soon as you hit the ground running, as soon as you get to this distance jumping, as soon as you grab onto the ledge, holding up so that you can climb up the ledge, immediately holding right, it is just constant inputs. Sometimes you're standing somewhere and something will kill you. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes the other entities like animals act in predictable ways. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get drawn over to you. Sometimes they don't. You sort of have to figure it out. There's a broad logic, but sometimes there's exceptions. Sometimes you're like, genuinely, what could I even be doing differently to escape from this horrible thing, this horrible moment? Like, I really got to a boiling point with me where you have to go through all of these trials at this one point in the game, in this temple. And you have to... There's essentially 4 screens. There's like a platforming section with these rocks that are swinging back and forth, and you can't get hit by them while you're jumping across the platforms that they're swinging between. But also, there's a bat flying around, and the bats, for some reason, immediately kill you if they touch you. So you got to learn the bat's pattern, but you also can't make too much noise or else it'll get attracted to you and just home in on you and kill you. Okay, make it past that. Then there's a screen where you have to do a timed defusal of a bomb. There's a bunch of like these mines in the game that you can turn off by waiting for, like, they'll blink red and then they'll blink green. And if you touch them you interact with them when they blink green, they'll get disarmed. So you got to do that while there's a bat circling around. So you have to wait for the bat to move, and then you roll in, and then you wait, and then you tap it, and then you roll back out. And then there's another mine that you can't disable behind it. So instead, what you have to do, because there's a ledge that you got to get up to at the other side of the room where all the explosives are, is you have to do a running leap to get to the ledge. And okay, I did that. Now I get up to another screen. I go upwards, and there is a lever that I need to pull that I cannot pull unless I defuse 3 subsequent bombs that have way more complex timings on when they turn green. So you do all 3 of those, and I kept... Interact for me was mapped to the Alt key, and I kept fucking hitting the Windows key, and it popped me out of the game because it only really runs in full screen. So I finally get all of those bombs diffused. I pull the lever. There's one more thing that I need to do in order to actually unlock the door to get out of here. And there's this one screen with this rabid animal, whatever, that is asleep. And there's a ring on a rope in the middle of the room. And all you have to do is go and hop up to grab the ring, and it'll pull down and open the door on the first screen of this whole section. And the moment you touch this ring, this dog thing gets activated and runs at you with the quickness. And I could not for the life of me figure out how I was supposed to get down from the ring and then run in the opposite direction fast enough to be able to avoid this fucking alien dog. And to be honest, I still don't know how I did it. I sort of figured out that the way that you grab on to the ring is different because, like, you have to grab onto it with a different input or something, or like hold down when you let go, or you don't hold down when you let go. For some reason, sometimes the dog just wakes up a little, like a second later, and you have just enough time to sprint away and jump to a platform on the next screen that he can't get to. And then you gotta go all the way back down and go through the swinging rocks. And that shit took me, no joke, I think 20 minutes on its own. There was another segment that was running through, visually cool, because it's all like in the foreground with really intense silhouette, running through a big sequence of a big platforming sequence where there's these other animals that like pop out and they will leap at you and kill you instantly, as with everything in this game. And basically, it is just, again, a series of trial and error. You have to figure out just how fast you can leap up to this ledge and climb up and then turn around and make a running leap. And then that thing wakes up and it pops into the screen, and then you run to the other screen, and then while you're running, you have to make a leap at this point so that this thing, you don't fall through that pit that opens up, and then you go down here, and then you leap up there, and then you go, and then you once you run to this side of the screen, you have to stop running because there's a wall, and if you hit the wall, it goes and gets knocked on his ass, and then the fucking animals are gonna come eat you because they're always chasing you. And then you gotta slow down and then roll, and you gotta roll because if you don't roll the whole way to this specific ledge, for some reason, the animal things will eat you. They will just be active, and they will eat you if you're running. And then you gotta run here, and you gotta jump at this exact moment. And it's just, you have to be so precise. There is next to no wiggle room on the timing of any of these things, because a lot of the animations have like a recovery period. Abe is kind of clunky and slow. That's sort of the point, is that he's not a super agile, capable guy. He's not a fighter. He's not an acrobat. He's just like he's just a person who's been a slave, a manual slave laborer his whole life. And he's in a crazy situation. And yeah, like he kind of walks on a grid, and he has to take forever to do certain things. And you got to slowly climb around if you want to navigate vertically. And yeah, all of those things are fine, but they just start to get on my nerves when they really put the pressure on. Or they make it so specific and they make the timing so tight that it's like, okay, you know how sometimes when I talk about horror games like Silent Hill, and I talk about combat in those games, like games with bad combat. Silent Hill 1 has bad combat, and that's okay. And there's like in-universe reasons and whatever, you know, Harry he's not a trained gunman. He's just a guy. He's just someone's dad who's in this situation. Sure, he's not Leon Kennedy. But for gameplay reasons, the fact that the combat is bad is a part of the experience. It is the combat is only meant to be a supplement to the horror. The combat is there because you need a threat, a tangible threat to the player that there is real harm that could come to them. That's why if you've ever played a horror game with where you can't die or you can't get hurt or lose anything, eventually the effect just wears off, right? The combat in Silent Hill is fine for what it is because it's just meant to be there to supplement the horror. It kind of holds it up and holds up the atmosphere that, yeah, you might be expected to do something and do a little bit of fighting, and that's a little bit spooky. There are enemies who can hurt you. And then you get to the boss battles and you get wiped a few times, and after like 1 or 2 attempts, the boss is not scary. There is no tension, there is no excitement, there is no build-up. It is just a boss that you have to beat, and you just have to contend with the combat. All there is now is shitty combat. And that's very different. That's kind of how I feel about the controls and the animations and stuff in Abe's Odyssey. Works just fine for most of the game, but in certain situations when they start putting the pressure on, and you have to be sort of skillful and not like cerebral with the way that you are solving problems, it can get very grating. It can get real. I was saying fuck this game multiple times. My patience was really running out with how many times, because also the game's checkpoint and save system is, we'll call it old school. When you save, it saves where you are. It saves what section you're in, not where you are. It says there are certain, like, screens are grouped into sections that are given names. And when you save, it saves that you are in that section. And no matter where you are in that section, when you reload that save, you will begin at the start of that section, wherever you came in from. And having to do, like, that whole sequence I described with all the mines you gotta detonate and the dog thing, every time, like, the hardest part of that was easily at the end with the dog. And every time it got me, every time I tried something different to see what I was doing wrong, and I had to do it so quickly that I could feel like I could barely piece together, I feel like I could barely learn anything. And I would die. And then I had to do the whole thing over again. It's just progress. And one time, the game crashed on me. And when I reloaded my save, when I booted the game back up, it had not saved. I lost, like, my last save file for some reason. And I had to go, like, 2 sections back. I was able to crank them out pretty quickly because I knew what to do, but that was a bad feeling. That's where the game gets on my nerves. When it is a little more forgiving and a little more like, okay, I'm actually going to try to solve a puzzle and I don't have to redo sections that take a bunch of patience over and over again, the game is great and really charming and interesting, and I could see someone really loving it. I don't know if once I get to the end of the game, if that kind of gear grinding design is going to be more prevalent. This is just sort of a check-in. I am approximately halfway through, I think. It sort of feels like that. And I'll do a review. I'll do an update when I'm actually done with it, but I just wanted to talk about it. And with that, I think I'm going to draw this to a close. Thank you. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, please leave it down in the comments below. But please leave it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. Check out the most recent video on a very weird, wacky Michael Jordan game on the main channel. Check out Check out my Patreon and my Ko-fi if you'd like to support me. And next video, I already know what it's going to be. And I'm pretty excited to work on it. I think it's going to be an interesting topic that I haven't seen covered too much. Surprisingly, I think it's an obvious topic. But I guess I'm the first person to talk about it. Probably not the first person. Whatever. Goodbye.